Jerry Stocking, welcome.
Thank you. Hi, Mark.
How are you doing?
Um, I'm all right.
Nice, nice. You got any good conspiracy theories for us?
Yeah. Um, let's see. I think the lake is conspiring to rise this spring and may take over the place.
Yeah.
I it's funny because sometimes you hear interesting ones. A friend of mine who's incredibly intuitive said, I don't know what this means, but I got that Donald is our last president. And I went, whoa, that's the start of a whole lot of. I like getting early in the conspiracy theory, and that to me was early.
Nice, nice.
Um, he might be it. And what I kind of made of that is that after this, we won't actually need politicians anymore,
Right.
which should be a nice relief.
It would. It would.
I'm not sure what we'll replace them with, but at the moment, probably trees and sky and clouds and joy.
Well, it seems like a lot of people are in a hurry to get back to their lives.
Um, I think we're being told that we are, but I'm not sure they actually have gotten away from their lives.
No one told me.
As a matter of fact, they might have gotten closer to their lives and they're in a hurry to get further from them again.
No doubt, no doubt.
Familiar terrain.
Right, right.
We
So,
just we just got back from Panama. They curtailed all flights there and quarantined everything. And just a little hint, when you're required to be somewhere, it's no longer paradise.
right,
So
right.
we were required to be there, couldn't escape. And boy, you want to escape when that happens.
No doubt, no doubt. So let's talk, let's get into it. Let's talk about what people are experiencing right now. And then, of course, as we talk about the power of attention, and that's really what we're going to talk about. Let's discuss what people are experiencing and how they could experience what they think they're experiencing a lot better.
Okay. First off, emotions tend to come in the form of sandwiches. We prefer anger, so that's the top layer. If we can't get angry enough, we move into sadness, which is generally right underneath it. And if we just can't deal with sadness anymore, we drop into fear. And what the virus has done is thrown all kinds of people everywhere who have nothing else in common into states of profound fear. As to whether the fear is justified or not, it's irrelevant because justifying it is rationality, and fear is by definition not rational.
Right.
So we got all these people who are fearful. Fear is a profound quantity of energy. It's huge energy, and the people are going, what do I do with this? What do I do with this? And in general, they're ignoring the advice I've given for 35 years in courses. Don't take your first response. They could be home if they took their 5th, 10th, 20th, 30th response. They could be home doing art. They could be home writing poetry. They could be home giggling. They could be home doing all kinds of stuff. I think part of the drive behind getting us back to normalcy is that if we get very much of this, we aren't going to want what used to be normal back again. And that's pretty revolutionary.
No doubt, no doubt. So two thoughts I'm having as you're saying that, and I want to make sure that we don't gloss over what the big takeaway, and that is about not going with your first reaction. Let's go deeper into that.
You're driving down the highway. Somebody thinks you cut them off. They give you the finger. They, threaten your life more or less. That's a first response.
Right.
If they didn't do their first response, who knows what they'd be doing? But we know it would be more creative, more interesting, and more joyful for all. If you get a really good book, really good literature, I promise you that over and over and over again, whoever wrote it didn't take their first response. In fact, they lead you into not taking your first response. Whether the virus is a blessing or a curse is entirely dependent on your response to it. It has nothing to do with the virus. And over and over and over again, we want what's going on with this to have something to do with whatever apparently fired it off, the stimulus from outside. And that's, pardon my French, but that's just bullshit.
Right.
It has nothing to do with that. On any given day, the same stimulus could produce a very different response on our parts. And if we don't take our first response, we discover there's always a second, a third, a fourth. And as we move out, they become more creative, more curious, more peaceful, and generally more standard deviations from the norm, tapping into our innate interestingness, our innate creativity. And watching people in workshops, because I've led workshops for 35 years, when they don't take their first response, they end up getting huge quantities of attention from whoever's around them. They discover that they are manufacturers of attention themselves, so there's enough to go around. When they're taking their first response, they take their next first response and their next first response, and pretty soon they just aren't even present. They're just responding.
Right, and it probably hasn't even occurred to the average person that they don't have to be triggered by a stimulus.
Yeah, you need a space for that to occur in.
Right.
For anything observationally based to occur, you need a space, and most people don't have it.
Right.
Yeah.
We're basically out of control at the same time with the illusion that we're totally within control.
Yes. And our attention, which is of a certain size, is generally full. So we have to drop something we're holding to make room for something else, and we don't like to drop anything. So basically, back to the old story of the Zen guy with a professor. The Zen guy starts to pour the tea and pours it, and it overflows. And the professor says, "Oh, it's overflowing." And he says, "Yes, like you." The professor's already full. Most people's attention is already full. There's no room for anything. And now it's shockingly full of the same thing, virus stuff, or what's happening in the stock market, or when am I going to get back to normal? Notice that a lot of that, it's vaulted us into the future.
Right.
So even people who used to dwell on the past and what's gone on before have leapt into the future. Once again, the present gets ignored. And the present is composed primarily of sensory data in our attention. What do I see? What do I hear? What do I feel? What I see. This is where I'm sitting, and what I see, that might take precedence over what I'm going to have for breakfast tomorrow, or whether or not I'm going to die of a virus.
We lost your audio a bit. It came down when you moved your.
Okay, I didn't touch anything, but
Yeah, just the audio is low.
I don't know what to tell you because I'm not touching anything.
Maybe move closer.
You can try. Is that better?
Yeah, a little bit. Anyways, so So yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting that it never even occurred to us that we have a choice within this a spectrum of possible reactions to
Yeah, no,
pretty much anything.
it virtually never occurs to anyone except maybe over a long period of time, and by then the stimuli have changed, so it still doesn't occur to them.
With respect to economics, a good career right now is probably divorce attorneys.
I think people are having a heck of a time. As the old reggae song said, you know, you go find out what an attorney costs, I'll go find out what the undertaker charges. And we'll do whichever one's cheaper. Yeah, we have an opportunity that we've been attempting to successfully avoid, to be with our families, to be with our friends, to actually, I have an odd theory, which is when we die, we end up with whoever we spent the most time with while we were alive. And for a lot of people, I think death looks like a better relief than that. I'm cynical a little bit, but I mean, it's hard not to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I have a good friend of mine who's been a friend of mine for 30 years. He's with his two young kids and his young wife, and he's meeting himself for the first time. He's taking advantage of this. He's doing some homeschooling of his kids, which he never would have done. He's not going into the office. He's discovering who his wife might be after a dozen years. He's there he is, and he says, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. He's not saying it's easy.
Right.
He's saying it's worth it.
Right.
And those two can be quite different.
Yeah. Yeah. I noticed I for the last year I gave up my gym membership for the first time in my entire life, as it was just an experiment to see if I could stay in shape without going to the gym. Part of one of the many biohacking experiments I've done, and it worked. So now I go on walks, and I've noticed it's my favorite part of my day. I love them. I cherish walking now and going. I mean, it's probably the greatest aha I've had through this experience, is just like all the
Not likely to find that at the gym.
no,
It's
no,
not like you can't now find it
right,
at the gym, but that's because you brought it to the gym.
right,
I mean,
right,
yesterday we hop in the canoe, we go over to an island, uh, and we strip down, go in the water. At the end of this, you just feel so pure, so clean, so it's incredible.
yeah, yeah,
I think sort of Mother Nature was here to entertain us rather than have us attempt to domesticate her
very true, very true.
of all the weird things.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big practitioner of the Wim Hof method, and it's basically cold and breathing. And go figure, it works as good as anything.
Well,
And it's
35 years ago, we were jumping in Lake Superior.
yeah,
Then we were clearing a little ice to jump in lakes in Wisconsin. Now this lake, it's to go in cold water is, you can't deny that you're there.
right, right,
You can try, but you're not. The conversations in our heads get quiet, and we go, wait a second, something real is happening. The same thing happens in an emergency room, except who wants to hang out for long in the emergency room? But you jump in the lake and you go, whoa, I'm here.
yeah,
It's pretty incredible. I heard that you were doing that, and I loved it, because
yeah,
we for years have had people in courses. In Georgia, we had 2 ponds, and it's really cold. Middle of summer, it's really cold.
yeah,
It's all spring fed. And they get in, and then they discover they can stay in.
right, right, right.
It's incredible to watch.
Well, another interesting observation is And it's even, a year later, I still notice now that as I'm about to get in the cold shower, there's that little voice in the head, the little part of you that is saying, it's trying to, for lack of a better word, fuck with you.
Yeah.
And and it as soon as you get in the cold, it just melts away. It's diminished. And it's this powerful exercise of flexing your willpower and your intent. And I think we have so little of that now, and of course in how we live our lives, randomly subject to chaotic sort of reactions to whatever is coming or whatever we believe is coming our way.
Yeah,
So
and I would bring another thing in there that's not popular, but preferences get in the way
yeah,
all over the place.
yeah,
If our preferences don't get served, our creativity and flexibility often do.
yeah,
I just not too before I went to Panama, I finished a 30 days jumping in the lake every day, and um, the lake was quite a bit the same temperature, but it never felt the same temperature
right,
because I'm the editor and the painter of this particular palette and canvas.
right.
And I thought that it made a difference of whether or not I went in, depending on what I thought. Maybe it doesn't. And never did I get out and wish I hadn't gone in. Not one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so much of experiencing life is going into it without a judgment, and easier said than done. But to the degree that someone can maybe tell you and whisper in your ear, it's just approach it. You don't have to think this is good. You don't have to think it's bad. You don't have to think it's going to be good or bad. But
Yeah, I just
approach it with a carte blanche.
when we're in Panama, we don't know if there's going to be an evacuation flight or not.
Right.
That's the way life works. And they scheduled one, and it was a military flight. And one day before it was due to go, they said, "Oh, by the way, that's canceled." And you go, "Wait a second. I was sort of counting on that."
Right.
Well, a friend of mine is a pilot for United. I used to ride in his buddy pass. You never know if you're going somewhere or not.
Right.
If you're going for free. And I've heard that many pilots and lots of people who work for the airlines never use these because they absolutely can't stand not knowing.
The uncertainty. Yeah.
And it turns out that the cost of certainty is great.
Right.
It requires you to plan weeks in advance
Right.
when we don't even have any idea whether we'll want to go.
The best article, I read a lot, and the best article I've read since this all began was an explanation from a psychologist as to why people engage in conspiracy theories. And you have your own take and explanation to it, and I'll give you mine first. Uh, it it the psychologist said it's a burning desire to reestablish control, and the fact that someone feels so completely out of control that they're basically grasping at straws to attempt to make sense out of something that apparently doesn't make sense to them. And that's why it's appealing to engage in the way I would frame it, and the word I use is egotistical, meaning a search for meaning, and to try, even if you have to create meaning, because that created meaning is something that you have this illusion of control over.
I would add one other, and it's going to, of course, be slightly more convoluted thing to that,
Of course.
which is that we want to think that somebody knows.
Yeah.
So we postulate that there is somebody that's pulling the strings.
Right.
It's the same reason we went for religion a long time ago. At least we can say God's pulling the strings.
Right. Right.
Or the puppeteers pulling the strings. Somebody knows what's happening, and it sure as the dickens isn't me.
Yeah.
And so they make up that somebody knows. I don't find any evidence for that. I don't find any evidence for that whatsoever. I don't find any evidence for that we're in control of anything. And believe me, it's not for want of looking.
Yeah.
I've interacted with thousands and thousands of people on the brink of not knowing over decades. And I've never found anybody who doesn't fairly rapidly, just like jumping into cold water, discover that they like not knowing better than they like knowing. They like it much better. They think they're going to hate it. They roughly equate it with death. And then it turns out that they love it. And then the irony here is that in the next moment, they still want to know. And by the way, they'd rather know bad news than no news. It's really a riot.
Right.
And back to my favorite subject, which has been my favorite subject for a long time, which is attention. We keep our attention full, mostly of things that we don't even care about, like redundant conversations or beliefs or thoughts that we only needed to think once, but we've already thought 1,000 times. Making us and our lives relatively boring. We've got all of this going on in there. The key to enlightenment is actually clearing this out so that we have nothing in our attention. Because it turns out that when nothing's in our attention, anything can show up. And people wander around full when they could wander around happy and empty.
Yeah.
And it's not like it's easy to do necessarily, especially when the pull is to be full. You know, I've watched you over the years. When a revelation dawns on you, which it often does in your case, and I watch, it's like you're born again. Yeah. You had room in your attention for that to show up.
Right.
And it showed up, and you went, whoa, this is not, I'm not painting by number here all of a sudden. I'm a new person.
Yeah.
Who doesn't have to know.
Yeah.
But can, but doesn't have to.
Right.
It's fascinating to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I think a big problem that a lot of people have is the need to be right.
Yes. As if, by the way,
it's a cousin of what we were just talking about.
Yes, as if there was such a thing as right.
Sure.
The farmer says, what should I plant this year? I don't think there's a right answer. But most farmers nowadays love corn and soy, so they plant corn and soy.
Sure.
I don't know. I operated differently on my land in Georgia. I kept planting blueberries because I liked them.
Right.
And I never had too many blueberries. But, it's such a funny business to try and be right because, among other things, it's gambling. It's like betting on the right horse. And it's really gambling because the race isn't necessarily ever over.
Right.
So you get to be right for a moment, and then you discover that what looked right a moment before now looks wrong. It's a weird dance.
Well, I've noticed this evolution with the people that are engaging in the conspiracy theorists. Their desire to minimize the existence of a viral outbreak, which we've experienced many times, many times throughout our course of human history. It's indelibly part of who we are, is disease outbreaks. And they want, someone went as far as to say that there's an alternative germ theory, according to whom? And you see their position has evolved and jumping cart from one to another in a never-ending attempt to minimize and get away from the reality that we are right now factually actually in the middle of a viral outbreak. And it's interesting, rather than just say that, well, you know what, my initial, as you say, coming right back to reaction, my initial reaction was wrong. Instead, keep digging, and it's fascinating to watch.
Yes. And it comes back to attention, which is when it's full, there's no room for anything.
Yeah.
And if it's full of conspiracy, or if it's full of explanation, or if it's full of fear, whatever it's full of, that's what you're going to get more of.
Yeah.
I think it's a riot.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I'm having a memory of one of my biggest breakthroughs and ahas. It was actually when you were visiting San Diego, and I realized that a few of my friends that I was hanging out with were full of shit. And later on, and it was sort of a two-tiered breakthrough. Later in the day, I realized that not only were they full of shit, but so was I. And and so was
that by the way, is the good news.
Right. It could be worse.
Well, I remember sitting with you in San Diego and knowing very, very clearly that there was nowhere else I would rather be, and no one else I would rather be sitting with. If you get that, whether sitting by a lake or if you're lucky enough to get it with another human being, then suddenly it's okay to open.
Yeah.
It's safe to open.
Yeah.
And it turns out it's always safe to open, but if it looks like it's not, we don't.
Right.
But sitting with you, your thoughts left, my thoughts left, and then we can get up to any kind of mischief we want.
Right.
Until that happens, if our attentions are full, we're just going to do pretty much the same thing over and over and over again. And we're going to think the same thing over and over again. One of the things I would say about your conspiracy folks is that they, like the rest of us, need some time away, more standard deviations from the norm, because that's the source of our originality. And they appear to be getting a little more original.
Yeah.
God bless them. But I can't look at Bill Gates and think he's actually up to some sort of mischief other than eating fast food, because I don't think he is.
Right. I mean, he can't even stop a virus on a computer, but people believe he's going to stop a natural virus that is like trying to stop the wind. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's got a unique problem, which is how do you get rid of all that money?
Right.
Most of us have some other kind of problem with money. He's trying to figure out how to get rid of it. But I'd like to dive down into the nitty-gritty of attention a little bit.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. I've been studying attention for an awfully long time, and it's going to produce a different kind of conversation that we have here, because people, for the most part, don't even necessarily notice that they have this beautiful human gift called attention.
Yeah.
So I'd like to talk about it just a little bit and get into the three secrets.
Yeah.
Attention is a subset of light, and it's what we use to observe, to sample our world so that we can make up what our version of the world is. So I can be sitting here, I can close my eyes, I can go inside and I feel certain things. I have pictures in my head, like I can still see you even though my eyes are closed. And I hear what's around. So most of what goes on in my attention is seeing, hearing, and feeling. But we've embellished upon that theme. So when you are there and you think, you've got this very complex structure of mass quantities of pictures, sounds, and feelings that compose a thought. Number one trick, a secret that people don't know, is go back to your senses. When you jump in the cold water, you feel, yes?
Yeah.
And suddenly, all of your attention is filled with physical sensations. It's a revolution. You aren't thinking thoughts. And then you get out of the water and you go, oh my God. And you may not say this, but you just had some time without thinking. Even a matter of seconds without thinking gives you a break. It lightens you up. It adds levity to your life, and it tears apart some of our patterns that are going to make tomorrow as much like today as we could. So if instead of judging, instead of thinking these big thoughts, we can see what we see, hear what we hear, and feel what we feel, life is going to get an awful lot simpler, especially during this beautiful quarantine time when we don't have the normal pressures on us.
Yeah.
What a beautiful time to practice returning to our senses. It's just an incredible opportunity to get back to that. And by the way, I'm not assaulting you because I know that you love thinking, and I love the way you think, but underlying that thinking are pictures, sounds, and feelings.
Sure, of course.
And very often we're responding to the pictures, sounds, and feelings that we don't even notice, and then making up stories about why. And by then, we're so far from the present that our stories better be pretty good.
Yeah, it's easy to be dissociated when we have feelings about our feelings and thoughts about our thoughts.
Yes, and then thoughts about our thoughts about our thoughts about our thoughts about our thoughts.
Yeah.
And when we were in Panama,
as far as we know, the dogs and cats in our house don't have these problems.
Boy, I don't see it. Even the bass in the lake don't seem to have the problems. But in Panama, we're headed down a mountain, and I'm watching my girlfriend Anastasia out ahead of me, and she's going too fast. And the world has a way of teaching us when we go too fast. So there's a pickup truck going around a corner, and this is a narrow Panama road with somebody who doesn't think a lot driving because they're just reacting. She hits the side of the road. A cloud of dust shows up. And suddenly my whole world is different because somebody I love is torn apart. Blood coming down her face, torn all over the place. Instantly, the whole world is a different place. But when that takes place, there's no room for thinking. You don't do anything. You're just there. And the idea is to be there without tragedy, without the pressure of such an event. And it turns out that the world takes care of us whether it's with tragedy or without, somebody's comes up, a local Hispanic, they give us a ride up to my friend's house. We place a call, we get an emergency room doctor, friend of mine, who oversees the, and in 2 weeks, she's pretty well healed.
Yeah.
But the opportunity in returning to our senses, which is what this did for her, is that we discover that us being here, sensing, is innately rewarding. We don't have to build something. We don't have to get something done. We actually can just be here and interact on a sensory interface with what's taking place all around us. We got the beautiful gift of being able to interact with what isn't around us. We can do that, but we don't have to do it.
Let's walk someone through at home who's watching this tutorial.
Let's do. As a matter of fact, let's triple down on it.
Yeah.
So first thing you do, just for fun, is maybe close your eyes, but drop inside and notice if there's anything you're seeing, hearing, or feeling. Anything at all that you're seeing, hearing, and feeling inside. To the degree that you can, eliminate the outside. And just drop into what you're seeing, hearing, and feeling inside for a fraction of a second. You don't have to do it. This is not meditation. You got 30 minutes to do this because you're going to fail if it's 30 minutes. So then open your eyes, come outside. Here's an outside world. So you were just in an inside world. Now you're in an outside world. And that's noteworthy because this is me and this is not me.
Yeah.
What a beautiful opportunity. Now, and here's the second secret for you. Where do you go next? Any idea? I can tell you where everybody goes. They go from inside to outside, back to inside, back to outside. And this is the source of dichotomies, right, wrong, good, bad, all of that stuff. Here's the secret. Go inside as much as you can, go outside, and then go to the entire universe. And you do that simply by not dividing or separating anything, by simply welcoming, open-armed, absolutely anything and everything. In other words, all day long we go for something specific. Here's the opportunity to go for everything. So our attention then goes to everything that is, and then comes back inside. And then it goes outside, and then it goes to the universe, everything that is again, and then it comes inside, and then it comes outside. So what happens is our satisfaction resides inside. We can't ever get satisfied enough outside. We can't get enough money. We can't get enough things. It's not possible. So the idea is, here we are inside, and at some point we find our satisfaction and we go, oh my God, satisfaction is an inside job. That's it. It's the completion of any loop inside ourselves. Here I am. Then, once we've got that satisfaction, we come outside and we discover, we test it. Whether with other people or trying to get something done or trying to be something or whatever, we test it. And we test it till we fail. Because that's the nature of it. Because there's a lot of stuff outside. There are a lot of places to stub your toe. There are a lot of places to fall short. There are a lot of distractions that will have you not be able to pull back in. So you come outside and you fail. Then you go to the universe, which is where you heal. And then you come back inside having healed. Then you go back outside to the slaughter. Then you go over to the universe again, and you get healed again, what all these people are doing is they're going inside, outside, and they produce a civil war. Should my attention be more inside or more outside? Should I? And almost always they get to the point where they have parts of themselves they're scared to meet, so they're thrown outside. They're like, can't stand that anymore. Yeah. Or they are outside and they need a little me time. They need a little space. People have so many ways of saying this. Then they're thrown back inside and they leave the universe out. But we're infinite beings. And the moment we start including the universe on each cycle with our attention, we're reminded that instead of being the something particular that we're trying to domesticate or own or control or be in charge of or postulate as a conspiracy, instead of getting stuck there, we step into the universe where everything is, and we go, oh my God, I'm everything. And then we become just us. We individuate. And then we go out and test it again. And then we go into the universe. And then we come back. This takes some practice. But if you practice this for a minute twice a day, or 30 seconds 3 or 4 times a day, it isn't long until you start getting clarity on who you actually are, which is an infinite spirit incarnated into a body. Yeah. And as a body, you got all this logistical stuff to do. You got blood pressure, you got viruses, yeah. You got all this, you got other people that you're somehow supposed to relate to who can't relate to themselves. It's too difficult, and we forget or don't even have a clue that healing is here in the form of tapping into that we're everything. And that same everything is nothing.
Yeah.
And there we go. And you add that to the cycle, practicing it for 30 seconds, a minute and a half a day, and who you are reveals itself to you, and you don't have to prove it. You find your satisfaction quickly inside, you find the tests quickly outside, and then you romp in the universe with everybody and everything. Now you don't have to seek satisfaction from another person. You already have it sitting here. It's odd to talk about because people don't focus. They're using attention all the time, but they're looking through it. This simple exercise starts to generate the ability to put attention on your own attention. And that opens the door to both being awake and co-creating everything. Sounds like a big promise for a little event, but little events are where things take place. There's not a big event that isn't made of little events. And almost always we go after bigger events than we can deal with. Here's an invitation to a substantially smaller event. Over and over again in workshops, I would have people do tiny little things and they would go, whoa. Because they've been trying to do big things.
Right.
There's a little taste. 2 main takeaways from that. You can practice this anywhere.
I watch a lot of these, and one of the big problems, in my opinion, is they keep going, and I call it glossing over the gold.
Yeah, let's not.
And instead of repeating it. So let's just, because I know this is valuable for people watching this, and it will force them to actually do it to the extent that maybe it'll put them into a pattern. Let's run it one more time. Just
yeah. Let's run 3 things and let's delve into them.
Right.
One is that I mentioned a little while ago, time to get back to our senses in our attention. What do you see? What do you hear? And what do you feel right now? What do you see? What do you hear? And what do you feel right now? This is very grounding. It sets us up
Why don't
with,
you, Jerry, pretend that I'm your client, and that way the person at home can pretend like they're me. So
yeah, okay. So close your eyes
yeah,
and notice,
yeah.
but you don't have to say anything.
No,
Notice,
I want to say it just for the
okay.
sake of the
So
viewer.
now make a picture if you
Yep,
can.
got it.
What do you see?
I see myself seated in the chair.
Nice.
Yeah.
So now have yourself get up and walk around a little bit.
Physically?
No, we don't have to do anything physically.
Okay.
And hear a little something.
Yeah.
What do you hear?
The car driving by.
Okay. And now feel a little something.
Yeah. I feel my the soles of my feet on the carpet and my butt on the chair.
Nice. Just even this short a time, feeling, hearing, and seeing inside confirms your existence to you.
Right.
You don't have to spend an hour meditating or with your legs crossed.
Right.
You can, at any point in your day, you can be in a line in a grocery store, you can be anywhere, close your eyes, notice what you hear, notice what you see, and notice what you feel. I'm going to tell a tiny story here. Years ago, I was working with a bunch of school district administrators. The superintendent was on his way out of his marriage and his job. And I said, you know, do you want to work with this a little bit? And he said, sure. You know, he's very unhappy, but he's sure. I said, well, what's happening very simply is that you're making a picture in your head that's out of your attention. And then you're reacting very strongly and very negatively to the picture. I can see you make the picture. I can see that you're not noticing you make the picture. This is basic NLP. I can see that you're not noticing you're doing that. Well, see if you can become a little aware of the picture.
Yeah.
2 hours later, he comes up to me and he's in tears. And he says, the picture is of the time that I ran over my son's foot with a power mower. And I think I've been seeing that picture for years. And here's where the real payoff comes. He says, I may not have to quit my job and I may not have to leave my wife.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I perceive this, I'm not saying that I won't continue to perceive it, but I'll know it's there. And that little check-in you just did is informing your whole system, your attention and everything that goes on, that you've got time for it, that you're willing to open to it, and that you're going to give it room to express itself. In our lifetime, there are millions of aspects of ourselves that we will never meet. And there's a handful that we'll meet. Returning to our senses makes it much more likely that we'll meet more aspects of ourselves. And if you were to ask me what the purpose of our life is, it's to meet more aspects of ourselves.
Yeah.
So that does that. So that's number one, return to our senses, like what you just did. And that also balances off because you're giving equal time or roughly equal time to what you see, what you hear, and what you feel. In our life, we bias it, and almost everybody gets unbalanced in their attention, more pictures or more sounds or more feelings, and less of the other two, thus biasing what they notice, thus creating a skewed world that isn't, a franchise competing with reality, which offers us seeing, hearing, and feeling in a balanced way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It seems, and of course, I think what we're going through right now is only amplifying this, but it seems like we're in the midst of and we can blame it on the diet, we can blame it on stress, but it's all of these things. We seem to be going through a anxiety and depression um, storm, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Yeah,
And
and
it
I
seems
would
like
just
people
go to
are
a slightly different place, which is that our internal auditory tracts have gotten really, really, really loud. And in the face of fear, we believe them.
right.
And that drives us nuts. And when we believe those so entirely, it isn't long until we shut our bodies out. And that's when depression shows up as a cure for absence of attention on our bodies.
Yeah.
So if you're quiet for a little bit, you can hear the insanity going on in people's attention.
Right.
I get a little too close in Panama to the woman in front of me because the guy behind me wants me to know that he was a professional baseball player for 33 years back in the 1960s. And I've never met him before, but
Right.
he needs to tell me this. And he's got a business card with a picture of him in his uniform. But I get a little too close to the lady in front of me and she panics.
Yeah.
I mean, if she had a gun, she'd shoot me.
Right.
And it's that she's going, I'm in danger, I'm in danger, I'm in danger, every place has become what the airport has become.
Yeah.
Anybody who gets too close to us is a terrorist. That's a sign of a very loud auditory being believed. I'm at risk, I'm in danger. Well, maybe, and if so, do the math and find out in how much danger, or find somebody who's done the math, because how much danger you're in fact, is mathematical. How much danger you perceive yourself to be in is a matter of what's getting into your attention, and that it's not even your attention anymore.
Exponential.
Yeah, nuts.
My grandmother probably gave me the best advice. I could live 10,000 years and I don't think I'll get better advice than the one thing she said. She said, "Honey, you will never ever need enemies. You will always provide your own worst one."
Oh, nice. My grandmother was one of the sweetest, neatest people I've ever met. And she went into the shoe store one day in Baraboo, Wisconsin, the Red Goose shoe store, back when that was a thing. And the guy who owned it looked at her and he said, "Do you mind if I just call you Twinkle?" Because, like twinkle, twinkle, little star, like twinkle, like your lightness, your from that moment on, that's what all of us called her.
Yeah.
For the rest of her life. And that's what she represented for us.
Yeah.
And I never once saw her make a problem.
Yeah.
She lacked that gene.
Yeah. Same with mine.
At the same time, she didn't have an ongoing auditory that made up crap that she believed.
Right.
She just didn't happen to have that. As a matter of fact, she considered, and like yours, I suspect, she considered herself lucky.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
I don't always consider myself lucky. You?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Contextual.
Sometimes it's very different than always.
Yeah.
So that's number one, returning to our senses. Number two is focus attention inside just for a moment. Focus attention outside. And then go to the entire universe. Let the universe romp in your attention, the whole thing, and then back inside.
Yeah.
Make all the difference in the world because that's where healing occurs. Healing does not occur when we perceive ourselves to be one little human on the planet. Healing occurs when we tap into our infinite spirit, which is the universe. And we've left it to come here to be embodied, but we can visit it.
Right.
And we can visit it any dang time. So you focus inside yourself for as long as you want.
Yeah.
And you can even ponder, where is my satisfaction right now?
Yeah.
Because it could be anywhere in you. Then come outside, and it's like being born. Here it is. There's outside. There it is. There it is. And then go to the universe.
Yeah.
And then back home. There's never reason enough to go from focusing inside to outside back to inside again. Because there's healing always works. I like to use a little verbal thing with this too, which is when you go outside, you say wait, because when your focus is outside, you're perceiving things that are not you. When you go over into the universe, the simple line is more, please, because that's what we want from the universe anyway. Give me more, please. And then when we get inside, the simple phrase is, I love you. So you can skip all the other stuff if you want for a little bit and just practice that. I love you. Wait, because I don't currently perceive this to be me or the universe. And then more, please. 3 phrases, all you need in order to direct yourself. It will take 2, 3, 4 days for this to become natural and start to run on its own. And then what you get is you get easy benefits that are ongoing and generative. Just as generative as a raging internal auditory or anger is destructive. It's not complex to turn this little ship called us around. It's quite easy, but you have to have some idea of how to do it, and it takes attention, that relationship. So does that non-gloss enough?
Yeah. I just wanted it to be clear for the people at home. And you got sight,
Yes.
sounds,
Yes.
feelings,
Yes.
sensations. Yeah.
It's
I'm not going to NLP them, but
no, but
I won't NLP on you either.
It's a very simple world.
Yeah.
And the third secret is, if you're upset, and I consider joy to be an upset and sadness to be an upset, it's anything that takes you a distance from your normal. If you're upset, your quality of life hangs in the balance, and your quality of life is always a factor of what's in your attention. It's how am I representing the world right now in my attention?
Yeah.
It is not the world. I went through, as a lot of people who are playing in spirituality do, I went down through the dark night of the soul for years.
Yeah.
There was nothing wrong in the world. The world, I was single parenting my children. They were great. Everything was great except me. And I was receiving the best gift I've ever received in my whole life, which was download after download after download of parts of myself that I've never, ever, ever wanted to meet. I lost 50 pounds in a month and a half. That was the start. And it only got better from there. It was what was in my attention. We can sit in front of the best meal ever, and if what's in our attention is something else, like that guy who was running over his son's foot, if we're upset, don't look around out here for what it is doing it to us. What's in your attention? Yeah. You can, a really simple thing to do, and this is very NLP-ish, is just put your eyes up and make some pictures, because it turns out that pictures have a tendency to lighten us up. Yeah. Just as much as conversations have a tendency to weigh us down. My book, The Upside of Down, is all about how to maximize the benefits of depression. And I'm offering that to anybody who wants it free. I think whether you have depression or know somebody who has depression, or you're planning a depression for next week or next month, this would be a very cool way to get into it and play with it. I would also like to offer people, unlike some people that I might be talking to right now, I considered that psychedelics and shamanic medicine were a distraction and a waste of time until about 2.5 years ago, when I started doing them. And then I found out they were a shortcut, not when done as a diversion, but when done as an opportunity to perceive oneself. Yeah. And what followed was a book called An Experiential Guide to Shamanic Medicine and Psychedelics. It really is a guide to the experiences that one can have. There are an awful lot of realities here, and often we live in one or two of them, which is really a form of neglect. As you well know, you can visit so many realities, right, and it reveals how entertaining and incredible we are. Right. I mean, you can look out at the trees or the clouds, and they're bright and beautiful, but there's nothing like being on ayahuasca and multiplying everything times 10,000 easily. And you go, wait a second, I could use that to inform my perception of the clouds and the trees right now. In other words, it reminds us of so many realities, and that this is a place of great entertainment. I'll give you that book for free too. Amazon actually banned that one, which is really flattering to me. So I would love to send you an electronic version of that one.
What's your, can we get your site, Jerry?
Yeah, and it's not very well developed at this point in time, but it's Jerry Stocking, JerryStocking.com. And you can just order the free psychedelic book. Then I'll send you information on other things. Or you can just go onto Facebook, and Jerry Stocking will have you find me there. Drop me a message or just friend me there, and I'll send you the links to the free books. I'll also send you...
we also have a post, guys, about this call in the Facebook Nootropics group, in my Facebook group, and Jerry's tagged. So if he's gracious enough, you have a question, you could always post a question there. It might be something that someone else could benefit from.
Sure, I'd be delighted to. I'm pondering retirement from things other than watching the lake and sheer pleasure. So I have, as we talked about earlier, the quarantine and the virus are putting people up against space and time.
Yeah.
Retirement does the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
Anybody who's interested in what we're exploring here, I make myself to some degree available for that.
Yeah.
And I also want to thank you, because we've had an awful lot of fun.
Yeah, yeah. Over
I'm
the
pretty
years
sure
too.
I'm pretty sure that's what it's about.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
We've shared some other realities.
No doubt, no doubt. Um, so just one closing thought.
Yeah,
I've started doing these as functional calls, meaning people are home, people are looking for how to maximize. Well, maybe they're not looking for it, but
there's
I
an
have them
opportunity.
try on the idea that let's maximize and take advantage of this time. So it seems that there's an invitation uh, to look at scarcity versus abundance. There's an invitation here to enjoy uh, space and time from a different perspective.
Yeah, I had a guy on a call the other day say, I thought I wasn't cleaning my house because I didn't have enough time to do so. Now I've discovered that I wasn't cleaning my house because I wasn't cleaning my house. Because
Yeah,
now he has all the time in the world and he still isn't cleaning his house.
yeah,
It appears to me that the huge opportunity we have here, um, I'm using it to aggressively move into Feldenkrais practice, which will give me a physical limberness that this old marathon runner has never had. And that, I love hating it, except that then afterwards it feels so damn good. Um, a very, very practical one is that my girlfriend and I look at each other throughout the day and we say simple words. We say, "You're so great." And we seek to mean it more every single time. And it's amazing how seldom we do something like that.
yeah,
And what a profound lubricant it is to love to do so. It makes a huge difference. And I find new levels at which I can mean it.
yeah.
Also, a great opportunity to eat better
Jesus.
and to make food.
Yeah.
To
Real food.
I think of Michael Pollan, and he says, if I were to offer you one suggestion regarding food, it's eat what you make yourself.
Yeah.
Make it from scratch. We had chili for lunch that was just absolutely outrageous, and now there's a bunch of it in the freezer.
Yeah.
And you can't, I go, God, I haven't, in Panama, I ate fruits and vegetables only until dinner, and then a light dinner. And not only did it make me high, but when I got high, it made me higher. I remember once long ago being really in a big funk, and a guy that I viewed as somewhat of a teacher of mine looked at me and he said, do as little damage as you can now, because whatever damage you do, you're going to have to take care of when you get out of this. Well, here's an opportunity for us to take an unscheduled break from the craziness. I wrote a book years ago called How to Win by Quitting. Well, this is a somewhat enforced quitting. So I hear people and they go, I'm going crazy with this. I don't know what to do with it. I don't know what to. There's nothing to do with it. Start playing with attention. And the idea that there's somewhere to be that's better than where you are, it's just a joke.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right where you are. I see you sitting there making the most.
Yeah.
Of
Well,
what
I've found this. I mean, I love history and I love science and I love social science even more. So I get to study all three as a
nice.
it's a
Well,
living laboratory.
in general, if we don't like, we're going to meet parts of ourselves that we don't like
Right.
when we have the time and space to do it.
Right.
The opportunity is to tolerate and then maybe even fall in love with those parts. Then what happens on the other side of this is that we've befriended and fallen in love with way more aspects of ourselves. Better will be even better.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity to interrupt.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm ready to, I'll be even more ready to get back to normal, but we're here now.
Yeah. Here we are.
Right. I think that's a good way to end.
Perfect. Thank you
Good
very
way
much.
to begin and end.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Thanks, Jerry. Appreciate it. And
It's a
have
great.
a good rest of the day. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.